Whakataka te hau ki te uru,
Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kine ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te tākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu. Ti hei mauri ora. Kia ora. Welcome to a SCANZ National Networking Night. Ko Kirby Roberts toku ingoa, ko Ngāti Werehi te iwi, and I'm coming to you from Whanganui Atara in Wellington. I'm a board member of SCANZ, which stands, for those of you who are new to us, for the Science Communicators Association of New Zealand. Our aim is to provide a community for science communicators to discuss and debate their craft with others. And we host events throughout Aotearoa. And if this is your first, even if it's your 50th event with us, kia ora, no mai hoki mai. In particular, welcome to our first online webinar for 2024. We're very excited to have such a large audience. We're slightly overwhelmed, but that is completely understandable given the fabulosity of our speakers and their kaupapa tonight. But first, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping things. Most importantly, the annual SCANZ conference is happening on Thursday the 21st and Friday the 22nd of November in Tamaki Makaurau at the AUT campus. The theme this year is Past Insights, Future Directions, which is fitting because it's actually our 20-year anniversary. You can register for the event at our website now, and also if you want to run a session, please make a submission if you're interested in presenting. Secondly, I know that some of you will be members of SCANZ, and if not, I'd encourage you to become so. It'll give you a discount on conferences and open up some of our member-only content. Doesn't mean, however, you don't have to be a member to come along to these kind of national networking nights, either online or in person. And the next national networking night will be in person and will be in different regions on Thursday, the 17th of October. And we'll social media the hell out of that one, so keep an eye out. Thank you for listening to that admin guff. Now on with the night. So the National Science Challenges were uniquely structured to promote and explore the potential of mission-led science communication and engagement. There were 11 of them. We have 5 of those represented tonight, which is really cool. And the 10-year programs that they ran came to an end on June the 30th this year. As you'll probably all know, the science sector is holding its collective breath, waiting for Sir Peter Gluckman's report to let us know how this current turbulence will end. But looking back at the NSCs is a really good way, I think, of looking forward into how we want to run science, and particularly around science communication. There was no template for the NSCs on how to create real-world impact. They were granted the flexibility to develop their own processes as they made progress on solving some of the biggest challenges facing Aotearoa and New Zealand. We're lucky to have 6 amazing science communicators who worked on 5 of the NSCs with us. They're each going to talk briefly about 3 key lessons that they learned in their roles before we split into breakout sessions to discuss things. Hopefully we've got enough speakers and there are few enough of you in the audience that we'll all be able to go into a breakout session with one of the speakers, or you get me. I've worked freelance on 6 of the 11 National Science Challenges, so I feel like I can do that. But first up, I want to introduce Carew from Resilience to Nature's Challenges. Caitlin has a background in the environment sector, having worked in environmental advocacy, education and communications, both in Aotearoa and Australia. Caitlin joined the Resilience Challenge team as communications lead in 2009 at the start of tranche 2, which was there were 2 tranches in the NSCs. The first was sort of kind of getting going and figuring out what they were doing, and then there was a second 5-year program. Next up, she's planning to embark on a Masters in Science and Society at Te Herenga Waka, and hopes to stay involved in communicating about natural hazards resilience research through the new Natural Hazards and Resilience platform. Over to Caitlin.
Kia ora, Kirby, and kia ora koutou to everyone online this evening. Yeah, so as Carew mentioned, I've been with the Resilience Challenge for 5 years. And there's a lot that I've learned in that 5 years about mission-led science communication, and how what we do is different to communications as led by science institutions. But yeah, I'll just pick on a couple of lessons that really played out for us in our challenge. One of them is that, you know, we were able to really add value in a range of ways, but one of them was that we were able to work on collaborative storytelling with researchers who didn't otherwise have access to communications teams. So I'm thinking about PhD students and early career researchers. Our National Science Challenge funded more PhD students than any other challenge, I think close to 100. So they were a big part of our research effort. Many of them told me that they didn't have access to communications help within their own institutions, and so we were really able to work with them to help them hone their communication skills, invite them to be part of things like webinars and media stories. The same goes for, you know, we had a lot of people involved in our challenge who were independent community-based researchers, place-based karangahau Māori and karangahau from whare wānanga. And again, we were able to work on really rich storytelling with them, such as videos, for example, that simply wouldn't have been supported and funded in any other way. So for them, that was a really important way that they wanted to share their research findings with their communities. So, you know, that was a way that we were able to really add value and step into a niche that other institutional comms teams weren't able to support in that way. Another major way that we were able to offer something different to what our institution-based colleagues were doing was we had the independence and autonomy. You know, we had independent governance, which I think made a huge difference. And we were able to edge into more of an advocacy space, I would say. So I'm thinking about things like, you know, being able to prepare submissions on policy and legislative changes, things like prepare opinion pieces for mainstream media. We just had that freedom that perhaps some of our institution-based colleagues weren't able to, you know, weren't able to kind of be as free in that way. And something else that was really beneficial for us, I think, was that we were as dedicated science communicators working on these larger collaborative research programs, we had a helicopter view of all of the research that our challenge was funding, but also aligned pieces of research that our challenge funded researchers were involved in. So things that they were involved in through the cores and the SIFs and endeavour programs and so on. And that, I think, enables new opportunities because it means that we're able to pull on strands from different projects and, you know, develop the kinds of summaries that our stakeholders told us that they wanted. You know, they wanted short, pithy summaries of the state of knowledge in a particular area rather than having findings drip fed to them, you know, project by project. And, you know, so we were able to have that helicopter view and develop those kinds of resources.
Caitlin, I'm going to wrap you up.
Awesome, thank you.
Now to be time to talk to Magnolia Lowe from Sustainable Seas. Maggie has over 20 years of communications experience across research, government and industry. Originally from Whangarei, she began her career in London and worked in TV, corporate film communications and advertising, including the successful London 2012 Olympic bid, which sounds pretty exciting to me. And since returning to Aotearoa via Melbourne, she's written and directed documentary films, including a short documentary on the earthquake risk from the Hikurangi subduction and her recent documentary series on water has received multiple awards at international film festivals. She also worked as content lead for vaccination rollout for the Ministry of Health at the height of COVID, so she's had a very interesting career. Maggie, over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Magnolia Lowe. Yes, so I actually joined the Sustainable Seas National Science Challenge quite late. I've only sort of been working with them for the last couple of years, so a lot of work had already been done. Particularly the research in majority was done in that first two phases of the challenge. And so I joined really at the time when it was decided to synthesize the knowledge between and across mātauranga and science, but also picking out the 9 key topics, or 10 key topics originally, that were most important. And perhaps for those who aren't familiar, I should explain what our purpose was. The purpose of the Sustainable Seas National Science Challenge, which I should point out that the challenges were all chosen by the public as the most pressing issues. And so we were given an objective to meet to improve marine resource decision-making and the health of our seas. And the focus of our research has been on EBM, ecosystem-based management, and transforming New Zealand's ability to enhance our marine economy into a blue economy. And so as part of that, we defined both EBM in an Aotearoa context, ecosystem-based management, and the blue economy also in an Aotearoa-based context. And that synthesis was probably the biggest key lesson for me is, so often research is siloed. And when you have interdisciplinary research over, a decade, there is going to be an awful lot of work that has been done that actually complements each other. But if you don't bring together all of the strands, it becomes not helpful for the people who actually have to use it. So one of the big pieces of communication that we landed right in the last sort of 6 months has been integration for impact, where we had worked with our end users, and that meant central and local government. It was anyone who was anything to do with policy, to sort of disseminate and compact down into the guidance and summaries across those 9 key topics that we thought were the most important as legacy topics for the challenge that needed to be taken forward and the research needed to be continued or embedded. And then I guess another key lesson is that people don't read research. It's really not, it's research papers, if they're behind a paywall, that's one barrier. If they're on someone's desktop, that apparently is also a barrier. And so at the same time, it's a synthesis, the concept of tahora came around, which was this idea of when somebody's looking for things, like if you were to do a Google search, you're not necessarily going to come up with what you need to know. And so we developed an AI-assisted natural language search tool called Tahora, which can fish through all of our most important research and frighteningly succinctly give a paragraph telling you exactly what you might need to know. And you can dig deeper and deeper into it. And also go and visit our repository that we put up. So I think learning that you have to meet your audience where they are. And everyone has an interest in the sea. So our audience is everybody, but most people will be put off by swathes of paper, even though that source research has been done and is there. When you're communicating, you really need to lead people into that. And storytelling is obviously really important for that. And so we also, for a more broad look at the reasons why that the problems that we face in the oceans need to be addressed, we also developed a documentary series, Turning the Tide, which RNZ has kindly screened. And so that was also a key learning that, if you're going to talk to everybody, you have to pick the right medium. for each person.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maggie. I think we'll shift on. The good thing for everybody is that you'll be able to talk to these people hopefully in a breakout room. Also, if you're looking for more information, the lovely Yana is putting things into the chat so you can find everybody's websites in there. So next up we have Cherie Stayner from Healthier Lives National Science Challenge. Cherie is a researcher with a passion for communicating science. She lives in Dunedin with her husband and 3 boys and has a number of roles at the University of Otago, including supervising research, teaching at the Dunedin School of Medicine, and managing a research centre. For the last 3 years, she's also been science communicator for the Healthier Lives National Science Challenge. Off you go, Cherie.
Oh, kia ora koutou and ngāhi Kerwin, and it's really a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about the work I've been involved in the last 3 years with Healthier Lives. So I guess one of the enduring experiences for me from working with this is being the relationships and how relationships have been really key to a lot of the work that we do. And that kind of reminded me, and I was thinking about this, about a sort of a proverb. It goes, e ha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. So what's the most important thing? It's the people. And for me, the relationships and the fact that the National Science Challenges, being over that sort of 9 or 10 year period, we had the opportunity to walk alongside the researchers right from the beginning. And so, you know, from the beginning when they were, you know, hui to try and work out what the research priorities were going to be. And as others have mentioned, we were given the mission that we had. So we're one of 3 health-related National Science Challenges, and our mission was to fund research that would reduce the prevalence or make some inways into reducing cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes and obesity. So we had lots of hui and workshops with people to work out what research needed to be undertaken, getting communities together so that everyone was in the same room and deciding together what needed to be done. And we had sort of international science advisory panel. People would come out and meet with the groups, and I was really lucky to be part of some of those. So I got to hear about, you know, the research from the researchers, and so that really helped set the scene for the 3 years that I was involved in terms of knowing why these projects were being done, and being able to sort of connect with the students and community research partners as well to sort of help tell their stories. The other next thing that I sort of thought of too was that building that science communication capability with researchers and also community groups. Because, you know, we're lucky with the science challenges that we had funding to put towards this, but not, you know, all research groups get that or always be able to access that. And some research groups are really experienced at being able to communicate their findings and get them out there in novel ways. But others needed a bit more of a helping hand. So sort of recognising that and facilitating access to different mediums and ways, particularly research that might be a little bit harder for people to understand, being able to think of ways that we can get that out to the public, but also particularly to policymakers. And I guess the third thing was that we were a very small team. So we probably, I think, had the least funding of all the National Science Challenges. And so I was half-time, and all our members of our team, including our director, are all part-time. So what we found is that we sort of tried not to sort of have defined boxes, that we would work outside our box, and would sort of help shape some of the sort of challenge strategy and direction, and sort of seize on opportunities as they came along. And one of those opportunities actually came out of, you know, a grouping that was set up of the comms people from the different challenges that we'd meet regularly every 1 or 2 months. And they were great sessions, and just a conversation that occurred in one of those sort of led to a grouping of 7 different challenges where we got together with directors and science communication people and put out a brief calling for a national food strategy or science-informed food strategy. And there's lots of other groups that are also calling for that. In fact, I saw in the news, there was an article this week, again, on those same lines. And some of that information that we put out there even made it into some of the political party manifestos. Unfortunately, not the parties perhaps that are in power at the moment, but I think that that's making a difference and putting science-informed information out there so that it can be acted on and hopefully inform policy in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cherie. Next up is Zoe. Zoe Heine was the partnerships coordinator at Deep South in the last year of its existence. Before that, she worked for, I think, about a year on that challenge as the communications advisor. And I'm pretty sure she's just completed her PhD on storytelling and sea level rise in Aotearoa through the Centre for Science and Society at Te Herenga Waka. And if she hasn't, she will very soon. Over to Zoe.
No, not completed. Sadly. That is what I am doing now. But yeah, kia ora koutou. Yes, it will be nice to see you there, Caitlin. So yeah, I was part of the comms and engagement team at Te Komata o Te Tonga, the Deep South Challenge, for a bit over 2 years. So very much just speaking as one of a great collective of people who was working there, and like a few others have said, kind of only there at the end of what was a massive 10-year research program. The focus of our challenge was climate change adaptation, ongoing beef that our name really did not represent that at all. But I won't speak more on that right now. My lessons are, I guess, a little bit personal to me, but I think some of it kind of goes across what our team discussed as we wound up and kind of our reflections there. So firstly, toitu te tiriti. We worked across the challenge lifespan to consider the treaty inside the research programs, in our public communication and our public engagement. Having this lens only strengthened the work we produced, and I think, yeah, our leadership team really understood the importance of it, and that then enabled, I guess, the rest of us to act with confidence in considering it in our work. So this leads, I think, directly to my second lesson, and this was to support communities to lead their own research and associated communications. Myself and Kate Turner, our knowledge broker, contributed to Carew and Caitlin's and others' article in upcoming World Society paper, and so this point made it into that, as communities can and should guide communications engagement. I guess the nature of climate change adaptation in particular, but I think this probably applies across a lot of the challenges, but it meant that a large portion of our research involved working really closely with affected communities, in particular Māori. So in our last funding round, the challenge focused on funding a group of Vision Mātauranga projects, which were led by researchers from within affected communities. They were then subsequently resourced and supported to produce their own communication outputs. So various team members there supporting them, but not leading the work. And this led to some, I guess, really innovative science communication outputs, which were targeting, I guess, from within communities. And I don't think we would have been able to produce these from a distance. And I have some links to put into the chat at the end. And then this is maybe particular to our challenge a little bit from what other people have said. Carew said I'm the only person who's fully wound up with their work. So that's my 3 minutes. The comms and engagement team completely wound up at the end of June. And so my last lesson is giving time to deliver communication outputs. So there were communication engagement outputs in pretty much all of the research programs in their contracted deliverables. There were a few where we kind of waived some of the requirements because of the nature of their findings, making it hard to kind of, I don't know, yeah, that's a whole other discussion possibly. But we had the largest tranche of projects finishing in May and June 2024. And some of them had communication deliverables due on the 30th of June, making it, I guess, effectively impossible to share this research in a way that, I guess, gave it the time and space needed. So yeah, missed opportunities on sharing those final outputs. Other challenges handled that differently. That's me. Okay.
Thank you, Zoe. Next up, we have Catherine Kirby. Catherine's a little bit different than the others because she was the Communication and Relationships Manager for EcoIndex, which is an initiative that began within the Bioheritage National Science Challenge, and it's now branching out as a company to provide biodiversity investment guidance. She's all about conservation, restoration, science communication, and environmental education, and started her career as an ecologist, but swiftly decided that outreach that encourages action was her passion. Take it away, Catherine.
Kia ora koutou. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou e tēnei hui. So cool to see such a turnout tonight. So the Biological Heritage National Science Challenge covered many areas of biodiversity and biosecurity. And like Carew said, EcoIndex was one program within that I was responsible for science communication within, and still am lucky to be doing that. So my 3 lessons starts with science communication stands on the shoulders of team culture and internal communication. And the challenges were a big turning point in my career in terms of science communication, because I saw the difference that excellent team culture and internal comms makes for quality science communication outwards. So I'm very fortunate to be part of an open-minded, brilliant and kind team who respect the expertise that every one of our kaimahi bring. And this has made a big difference to the license and support we've had for creative science communication across the board, including access to our scientists, direct involvement from leadership, and lots of input from the whole team. For example, our map development team will support us through multiple rounds of changes to improve the level of understanding that our users can gain from our maps. And our co-directors will make time to answer media inquiries, and everyone considers communication elements while their work is in progress rather than as a tick box at the end. And yeah, that comes back to the culture of respect for science communication and what we can achieve with it. My second point is that there's a huge opportunity for impactful science communication in the business world. And a few years ago, I did not expect to be advocating for science communication within or to business. But Bioheritage as a science challenge encouraged all research teams to seek business partnerships and co-funding to boost impact. And that took EcoIndex on a journey into the world of where nature meets business, if you like. And we learned really clearly that engaging with business can be fruitful, because although their resourcing is obviously helpful, in terms of impact, business buy-in can make a huge difference, because having businesses committed to using your outputs and advocating for you can open many doors for further engagement and continuation of your kaupapa beyond you and your team. And then along those lines, I was reflecting that effective science communication isn't, again, a tick box exercise, but in fact, it can open doors for the whole team, paving way for more quality science, whether you're involved, in our case, in the real detailed data science or impact analysis and social science or economics or whatever it is. If good science communication has been undertaken at every step of the way, it's quite simple, but it creates awareness of your kaupapa and contributes to your overall reputation. So if you're approaching a potential partner, whoever they are, whatever sector they're from, for research collaboration or investment or implementation, it really helps if they already have a positive impression of your mahi. For a final example, at a recent symposium, having EcoIndex on my name tag skip me straight to the really in-depth level of the kōrero over lunch, rather than spending the whole time doing polite chit-chat and trying to work out what Eco-Index was about. And that's my wrap-up.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Catherine. And heading on finally, but definitely not last. Well, last but not least, whatever that expression is, sorry. Anyway, we'll hear next from Jenny Stein, who's been working alongside Caitlin in Resilience to Nature's Challenges. Jenny started off as an exploration geologist, indulging her love of geological mapping and sampling in rural Tasmania, Thailand, Namibia, British Columbia, as well as New Zealand. She's also spent 3 years teaching English in Japan, before a 3-month stint teaching English and delivering geology lessons. Just started her PhD at Massey University, investigating public education around natural hazards. Over to you, Jenny.
Kia ora, Carew, ngā nui. Yes, my 3 lessons, and I'd also like to tautoko some of what others have said this evening. So I came on board with the Resilience Challenge at the start of 2022, when it became clear that actually the need for communication was exceeding Caitlin's capacity as a single communications person working with over 100 researchers. And yeah, all credit to the Resilience Challenge for being able to resource that. Just Caitlin mentioned students, they're really keen to go beyond the traditional science communication approaches scientists tend to interpret it of creating papers. They really want that support to produce other outputs that are more meaningful for the next and end users of their research. They're super keen, they just need the support and the capability. So my key learning there would be to provide that. And so we've done our best to do that with the National Science Challenges, and I hope other programs will going forward. Heine and Magnolia mentioned the integration and synthesis of research in a multidisciplinary, and hopefully we aspire to a transdisciplinary manner. That's so important, and it's just something you can't do as an institution-based communicator. And so my dream for the new Natural Hazards and Resilience platform would be to take that one step further and actually have a comms approach that actively seeks out research in the resilience to natural hazards space that's going on within the platform, but may also be coming alongside as aligned and doing like a nationwide resilience community-based approach to comms, so that we can integrate as much information and knowledge as we can from all knowledge systems, all relevant knowledge systems. Cherie mentioned relationships and walking alongside researchers. 100% comms people need to be there from the start, building those relationships with the researchers and the communities, even as the projects are being planned. Particularly if they're being planned, we can know the timeline for outputs and engagement. We can be there with cameras, we can capture materials that then make that end product of research, but also that journey and the people involved, which lets other people connect to the research in much more meaningful ways, be part of the story that we tell. And it just makes for so much more impact when you have that massive resource of really engaging content to draw on for your communication outputs. Doing that also further enables communication to be a two-way street. I think, yeah, Zoe mentioned that how we've, the National Science Challenges, we've helped science communication, again, quote unquote, advance from being just translating and presenting science to people to actually engaging with those people and building an understanding and incorporating community wants and needs, or end user wants and needs into those communication endeavours. And ultimately, yeah, if we can support communities to guide their own communications and engagement, particularly Māori and iwi communities, then that's awesome, and that's a real win. Zoe also mentioned giving time to deliver communication outputs beyond the end of programs. We're lucky at the Resilience Challenge, we're still on staff for another week and a half, doing our absolute best to do that. You may have seen we've ramped up our social media and we've got policy briefs coming out our ears. So it's a really busy time. We're doing our best to communicate our outputs in a range of ways so that different audiences can access them. Catherine mentioned the impact good internal comms has on external outputs. So important. It just lets you keep abreast of what's going on in your research programs, particularly as a National Science Challenge with multi-institutional, hundreds of researchers, hundreds of students. If you've got good internal communications, you've got information coming in that then you can use to maximize the inclusivity, but also the relevance of your final communications products.
Brilliant.
And
I'm gonna wrap you up there.
okay, that's fine.
And what we're going to do now is, if you are interested in being part of a more interactive thing, we're going to split out into discussion groups. There'll be one of the speakers in each group. We'll hold that for about 12 minutes or so, and then the speakers will go away. You will stay in your groups. The speakers will go away and you'll get another speaker joining your group again. So you've got opportunity to talk about anything that you want. Hopefully you'll get one of the speakers that you're interested in, but they're all amazing, so you will all get wonderful things out of it anyway. And I'm going to go in with Zoe's group just in case Zoe has to wander off for her baby again. So we will see you in groups. And if we do not see you back after that, we will come back briefly for karakia and just to wrap up. But thank you all for being part of this, and I hope you've enjoyed so far. Enjoy the breakout rooms. Please make use of the ability to chat and talk to each other. All right. Yep. Welcome back. Thank you for all of you who've stuck around till the very end. I hope you've gained a lot of knowledge from listening to these amazing people. As a country, I think we have a lot to be thankful for from the National Science Challenges, and particularly as a profession, I think it's had a real effect on science communication in this country, I believe. Watch out for the paper that will come out in the Royal Society's special on the National Science Challenges. There's a science communication and engagement particular article in there, which has come from all of the feedback from all of the science communicators across the National Science Challenges. But we have recorded the first part of this, and we'll put that up on our website for anybody who needs to watch that. And thank you all for coming. I'll ask Daisha to close with a karakia. Oh, sorry, one more reminder. Sign up for the conference. Become a SCANZ member. Woo! Okay, Daisha.
Oh, and also a thank you to Carew for emceeing us, and Andrea for organising all the breakout rooms.
Thank
And
you
to
very much,
SJ for her
team.
hard work setting things up. Kia ora koutou. Ka whakairia te tapu, ke wātea ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, hui e, ta ai ki e. Tēnā tātou, homari.
Kia kite.